The protocol. She was screaming, but no one could hear her through the sealed glass walls 40 stories above the city. Marcus stood over her with a small medical syringe, speaking about her safety while Dr. Aris, the trauma expert she had confided in just hours earlier, stood in the hallway with a tablet, recording every moment. 3 months earlier, Elena had believed she had the perfect life. The silver key slid into the heavy oak door with practiced ease. Elena pushed it open, her tan trench coat still damp from the light rain that had followed her home from the office. The polished marble floor of the apartment greeted her like it always did, cool, pristine, welcoming. But something was different tonight. Her eyes dropped immediately to the floor near the kitchen island. A crystal wine glass lay shattered into hundreds of pieces. The fractured light caught each shard, scattering prisms of reflection across the smooth stone surface. She stood in the doorway, her briefcase still in her hand, staring at the glass. The refrigerator hummed softly in the distance, the only sound in the vast, open apartment. How long had those pieces been lying there? Had Marcus broken it himself? Or was this meant for her to see? Marcus emerged from the shadows of the living room. He wore a charcoal gray sweater with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows. In his hand was a damp white towel. His face was calm, almost serene, but his eyes held something that made Elena's breath catch. "You're late, Elena," he said. His voice was soft and melodic, the kind of voice that would sound gentle to anyone listening. "I was worried you'd lost your focus on the road." She looked at the glass. She looked at Marcus. Very slowly, she set down her briefcase and moved to pick up a shard, bending carefully, extending her hand toward the floor. Marcus stepped forward. His leather shoe, polished to a mirror shine, came down on one of the larger pieces with a sharp crunch. Glass broke into smaller fragments beneath his heel, grinding against the marble. "I'll handle the mess," he said, still smiling that smile. "Why don't you go change? You must be exhausted." Elena straightened up. She didn't argue. She had learned not to argue. The following evening, Elena was dressed and ready for the business dinner. It was an important meeting, a client pitch that her firm had been preparing for weeks. She had moved through the day with mechanical precision, speaking to colleagues, reviewing presentation slides, all while her skin crawled with the memory of Marcus's hand on her arm the night before. She stood in the kitchen hallway, her leather briefcase in hand, her dress dark and professional. Marcus leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching her. Elena tried to sidestep him, moving toward the counter where she had placed her briefcase. Marcus shifted his weight without moving his feet, blocking her path entirely. The hallway was suddenly very narrow. "Where are you going?" he asked. Not a question, a demand pretending to be curious. "The client dinner. I told you about it last week." "You did. But the weather looks unstable tonight. I think you should stay home." "It's just rain, Marcus. It's a 40-minute drive." She tried to move around him again. This time, Marcus reached out and grabbed her upper arm. His grip was tight enough to wrinkle the sleeve of her dress. He pulled her toward the kitchen island with a controlled, deliberate motion that made it clear she had no choice in the matter. Elena pushed back. Her palms landed on his chest, and she tried to wrench her arm free. Marcus didn't move. He was like a stone wall, immovable, unbending, solid. She could feel the warm fabric of his sweater beneath her hands, feel the steady heartbeat underneath, unchanged and unmoved by her resistance. "Don't be difficult," he said quietly. She pushed harder, her heels sliding slightly on the marble floor. Every muscle in her body strained. A grunt of exertion escaped her throat. Then Marcus twisted her arm behind her back. It wasn't a slow movement. It was sudden and violent, executed with practiced precision. He jerked her arm upward, and she felt something in her shoulder joint shift and pop. Her face contorted in pain as he leaned down, his lips mere inches from her ear. "You shouldn't struggle," he whispered. His voice was terrifyingly calm. "You're fragile tonight. It's for your safety." Something inside Elena broke. Her survival instinct overrode everything else. She brought her knee up in a sharp, vicious arc, striking Marcus in the thigh. He grunted in pain and released her. She stumbled backward, her body crashing into the stainless steel refrigerator with a loud metallic thud that echoed through the apartment. Elena stood there, breathing hard, clutching her arm. She could see the bruise already forming on her skin. She looked at Marcus. He was rubbing his thigh, his expression unchanged, as if what had just happened was no more significant than a minor inconvenience. "You'll miss your dinner," he said. "You'll call them and tell them you're sick." "I won't." "You will." She walked past him to her bedroom and locked the door. Within minutes, her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the phone. She called the office and said she wasn't feeling well. She hung up before anyone could ask questions. That night, Elena lay in bed and made a decision. Tomorrow, she would find the truth, whatever it took. The house was silent at 11:30 p.m. Elena crept down the hallway toward Marcus's office. The moon through the wooden blinds cast long stripes across the floor. She pushed open the office door and closed it softly behind her. The only light in the room came from the slats of the blinds. She sat in Marcus's leather chair, which was still warm from his body. The leather creaked beneath her as she opened the bottom drawer beneath the desk, pushing aside stacks of papers, tax returns, mortgage documents, insurance policies. Behind them was a sleek, silver external hard drive. Her hands trembled as she plugged it into the laptop on the desk. The screen glowed to life. The fan whirred. Dust particles danced in the blue light of the monitor. A folder appeared on the desktop. Enrollment. Elena opened it. Inside were dozens of subfolders, each labeled with a woman's name. Some of the names meant nothing to her. But one folder was highlighted at the center of the screen. Elena, Phase 3. She clicked on it. The folder contained voice recordings and phone call transcripts. There was a PDF file titled Behavioral Modification Protocol. Her hands moved without her conscious thought, clicking on the document. The text appeared on the screen in cold, clinical font. The first line read, "Goal: total autonomy deprivation through concern-simulated isolation." Below it was a section labeled Phase 1, Isolation. It described methods for limiting a subject's external contacts, creating a sense of dependency through manufactured concern. Phase 2 was titled Psychological Fragmentation. Phase 3 was Physical Control. And at the bottom of the document, a new section waited. Phase 4, Physical Erasure. Elena sat in the leather chair, staring at the screen. Her vision blurred. The weight of it all pressed down on her chest like a physical thing. This wasn't a marriage. This was an experiment. She was a subject, a phase, a goal to be achieved. She copied everything to her phone. Files, recordings, documents. She did it mechanically, her mind somewhere far away. When she was done, she deleted the history, unplugged the drive, and put it back in its hiding place. Then she closed the laptop and sat in the dark until her breathing slowed. The next morning, Elena packed a small bag while Marcus was in the shower. She told him she was going to meet a friend for coffee. He smiled and said that was nice. He reminded her not to be late coming home. She kissed him on the cheek like she always did. She was lying smoothly now. It frightened her. The underground parking lot was dim and vast. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting pools of sickly illumination between long stretches of shadow. Elena walked quickly toward her white SUV, her heels clicking rhythmically against the concrete. She kept checking over her shoulder. This was where she had arranged to meet Dr. Aris, the trauma specialist who had been coming to the apartment building for the past month. Elena had paid her in cash for private sessions. She had told Dr. Aris things about Marcus, things that made her afraid. Dr. Aris had listened with such compassion. She had nodded and taken notes and assured Elena that what she was experiencing was abuse. Elena clutched her leather purse to her chest, her car keys in her other hand. She was close to the SUV now. She could see it, white, familiar, a beacon of escape. A few more steps. A few more. A man in a navy windbreaker stepped out from behind a concrete pillar. Elena didn't think. She swung her heavy purse at his head with all her strength. He ducked, and the bag hit the SUV window with a tremendous boom that echoed through the parking garage. He lunged at her, grabbing her waist. Elena's scream caught in her throat as she twisted away. She reached into her purse and found the small canister of pepper spray she had bought weeks ago when she first sensed something was wrong. She pulled it out and didn't hesitate. She blasted it directly into the man's face. He screamed, a guttural, animal sound of pain. His hands flew to his eyes. He staggered backward, coughing and gasping, temporarily blinded by the orange mist that hung in the air. Elena scrambled into her SUV, slammed the door, and locked it. She gunned the engine. The tires screamed as she peeled out of the parking space, leaving the man on the ground, still clawing at his face. She drove fast, checking her rearview mirror constantly, expecting to see a vehicle pursuing her. But there was nothing. Just the ordinary traffic of the city. Just a woman driving too fast, her hands shaking so violently on the wheel that she could barely control the car. She drove until she found the address Dr. Aris had given her. A small clinic in a nondescript building that didn't advertise itself. She parked in a dark corner of the lot and sat in her car for a full 5 minutes, trying to steady her breathing. Everything was falling apart. The man in the parking garage, the files on the hard drive, Marcus's hands around her arm, the broken glass. All of it swirled together into a terrible, unstoppable momentum that she could no longer control. She got out of the car and walked into the clinic. Dr. Aris was a woman with silver hair pulled back in a neat bun. She wore sharp glasses that magnified her eyes slightly, making her gaze feel more penetrating than it was. She sat across from Elena in a small room lined with books on trauma, psychology, behavioral manipulation. She spread Elena's photographs of the protocol document across a low coffee table between them. Elena sat on the edge of a green velvet sofa, a paper cup of lukewarm tea wrapped in her trembling hands. She couldn't drink it. She couldn't do anything but stare at the photographs of the protocol that she had printed from her phone. Dr. Aris was reading quietly, her finger moving across the pages, stopping occasionally to make notes on a legal pad. "This is very thorough," the doctor said finally. "Very methodical." "It's not a document," Elena whispered. "It's a blueprint. He has a system, categories, phases, other women's names." "I see." Doctor, it seemed performative. "Let me rest for a moment," Elena said suddenly. "Can I lie down?" "Of course. There's a room through there." Elena stood up unsteadily and walked into the adjacent room. There was a small bed covered in white linen. She lay down and closed her eyes. Through the open doorway, she could hear Dr. Aris speaking softly into a phone. "Yes, Phase 3 is complete. Subject has obtained full documentation of the protocol. No, she doesn't suspect anything yet. She's resting now. Yes, I have the recording. Elena's blood turned to ice. She lay perfectly still, barely breathing, while Dr. Aris made another call. 30 minutes later, Elena left the clinic through a side exit. She didn't say goodbye. The apartment building's elevator ascended silently. Elena stood in it alone, her mind racing through 1,000 scenarios. She had been driving for hours, unsure of where to go or what to do. The clinic had been a trap. Dr. Aris was part of it. That meant everything, everyone could be part of it. The elevator doors opened. Elena stepped into the hallway. Mrs. Gable, her neighbor, was standing by the elevator as if she had been waiting. She wore a blue cardigan despite the warm evening. She looked terrified. "Elena," she said quietly, "thank God I saw you leave yesterday. I need to tell you something. It's important." Elena stepped back into the hallway. The elevator doors closed behind her. Mrs. Gable glanced up at the security camera in the ceiling, then reached into her cardigan pocket. She pulled out a newspaper clipping and thrust it into Elena's hand. "Read this, but don't let him see it. Don't let anyone see it." Before Elena could respond, Mrs. Gable hurried back toward her apartment, her small figure disappearing around the corner. Elena unfolded the newspaper clipping with shaking hands. The headline read, "Promising architect's wife missing for 3 years." Below the headline was a photograph. One side showed Marcus, younger, his face unsmiling. The other side showed a woman's face. Elena stared at the photograph for a long moment. The woman looked exactly like her. Not similar. Exactly like her. Same bone structure, same eyes, same distinctive small scar on the left temple from a childhood accident. Elena touched her own temple. The woman's name was listed as Sarah Thorne. Age 28. Missing since 8 years ago. Elena was 28 years old. She had been married to Marcus for 3 years. Before that, there was a gap in her memory. A time she could not quite remember. A fog that covered her past. She had always assumed it was trauma from something she didn't want to remember. But now, staring at Sarah Thorne's face, she wondered if perhaps her entire life before Marcus didn't exist at all. She looked up at the security camera in the hallway. Then she carefully folded the newspaper clipping and put it inside her bra, close to her skin. That night, Elena tried the bedroom door handle. It didn't turn, not even slightly. She tested it again, more forcefully, then tried the deadbolt that controlled the lock from the outside. It had been replaced. A digital smart lock now covered the mechanism, glowing with a small red LED light in the darkness. Elena's breath came faster. She ran to the window, the massive glass-walled window that looked out over the city, 40 stories up. She tried to push the pane open. It didn't move. She tested the frame, running her fingers along the edges. Silicone sealant, clear and thick, had been pressed into every crevice and joint. High tensile, professional grade, impossible to break with her bare hands. She pounded on the glass. The impact barely made a sound through the heavy pane. In the hallway outside the bedroom, visible through the translucent door panel, Marcus stood calmly. He held a glass of amber liquid, whiskey, and in his other hand, a small medical syringe. The needle caught the light as he tilted the glass, watching the ice clink together. He looked at the door, at the silhouette of Elena beyond it, and he smiled. Marcus entered the bedroom without speaking. He simply unlocked the door from the outside and stepped inside. Elena was ready. She had pulled the heavy lamp from the nightstand, ripping the cord from the wall. When Marcus crossed the threshold, she lunged at him, swinging with all her strength. The brass base of the lamp caught Marcus on the shoulder. He grunted, stumbling backward. The light bulb exploded, casting sparks into the darkness. The frayed cord sparked and sizzled in her grip, but she held on to the metal base. Marcus recovered faster than she expected. He closed the distance between them in 2 strides, his hand closing around her hair. He jerked her forward and slammed her face first into the wall beside the bedroom door. The impact drove the air from her lungs. She felt his forearm press against her neck, pinning her there, her cheek ground hard against the drywall. She couldn't move. She couldn't breathe properly. She could feel the strength in his arm, the pure, casual dominance of his body over hers. "You were doing so well," he said, his voice disappointed, almost sad. "Why do you insist on making me hurt you?" Something inside Elena snapped. A primal fury rose from somewhere deep in her core. She reached back, found his face with her hands, and drove her thumbs toward his eyes with everything she had left. Marcus screamed. It was a sound of genuine pain, a sound that meant she had hurt him, that she had done damage. His grip on her neck loosened. She twisted away and drove her knee upward, aiming for his stomach. The impact sent him staggering backward. He crashed against the wall across from them, knocking over the lamp table. The remaining pieces of the glass from the kitchen fell from his jacket. He had picked them up, perhaps as a threat, perhaps as a message. Marcus crouched against the wall, his hands over his face, blood running between his fingers. Elena didn't wait. She ran from the bedroom into the living room, her breath coming in gasps. The front door was ahead of her. She reached it, fumbled with the deadbolt, and felt it slide back. She wrenched the door open and burst into the hallway. The stairwell was to her left. She could see the exit sign glowing above it. She was almost there. She was going to make it. She was going to... At the bottom of the stairs, Dr. Aris was waiting. Elena skidded to a stop. For a moment, she stood frozen, unable to process what she was seeing. Dr. Aris stood in the emergency stairwell, dressed in the same professional clothes she had worn at the clinic, holding a small tablet in her hands. "Dr. Aris," Elena breathed. "Help me. Please, he's..." "Subject has reached peak cortisol levels," Dr. Aris said calmly, speaking into the tablet. She was looking at the screen, not at Elena. "Response: physical aggression and flight. Phase 4 complete." Dr. Aris looked up from the tablet. Her expression was warm and professional, like she was speaking to a patient in an office visit. "Don't be upset, Elena," she said gently. "You've provided excellent data for the curriculum." The tablet screen showed a graph with a bright red line spiking upward, monitoring something. Elena's stress response, her fear, her desperation. How long had she been wearing a monitor? When had Dr. Aris placed one on her? Elena didn't wait to find out. She turned and ran back up the stairs, taking them 2 at a time. Behind her, she heard Dr. Aris speak into the tablet again. "Subject is retreating to the primary location, activating secondary protocol." Elena made it to the hallway and ran back toward the apartment, but Marcus was standing in the open doorway, blocking her path. Blood had dried on his face, but his eyes were clear, focused, predatory. There was nowhere else to go. She was trapped between the 2 of them. Marcus ahead, Dr. Aris below. The walls of the hallway suddenly felt like they were closing in. Elena looked from Marcus to Dr. Aris, who had climbed the stairs and now stood at the other end of the hallway. They had her. They had always had her. Then Elena did something neither of them expected. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out her phone. The screen displayed a red Live badge. The stream had been broadcasting for the past 20 minutes, since she first heard Dr. Aris speaking in the clinic. Elena had started the recording while lying on that bed, listening to the doctor confirm everything. She turned the phone toward both of them, showing Dr. Aris and Marcus their own faces captured on the camera. The comment section scrolled up the screen at tremendous speed. "Call the police." "Is this real?" "I see them." "How many people are watching?" 40,000 viewers. 40,000 people watching in real time. Elena's voice, when she spoke, was steady and clear. It resonated in the hallway like a bell. "This is Marcus Thorne. This is Dr. Sarah Aris. They are running a behavioral modification experiment on human subjects. They have confined, abused, and psychologically tortured me. They are doing this to other women. And now, the world is watching back." Marcus lunged toward her, but Elena had already opened the hallway window. She held the phone out into the night air, keeping the stream broadcast even as Marcus grabbed for her. He seized her wrist, but it was too late. The footage had been uploaded to multiple platforms simultaneously, shared to social media accounts, news outlets, police departments. By the time he managed to pry the phone from her hand and hurl it across the hallway, the entire world had seen their faces. Within minutes, Elena could hear sirens in the distance. Within moments, they grew louder, closer, filling the city with their urgent wail. The glass front doors of the building exploded inward as tactical police officers in full gear stormed the lobby. They moved with military precision, their heavy boots crunching over the shattered glass like it was nothing. Marcus and Dr. Aris were slammed against walls simultaneously, their arms wrenched behind their backs, the cold click of handcuffs locking around their wrists. Uniformed officers read them their rights while they screamed protests and denials into the tile floor. Elena walked slowly down the hallway. She descended the stairs carefully, as if she was moving through a dream. Each step felt separate from the last, disconnected, surreal. She stepped over the shattered glass at the building's entrance, walking out into the cool night air. Blue and red police lights painted everything in alternating colors. A detective approached her, concern on his face, reaching out as if she might break. Elena looked at the detective. She opened her hand. In her palm was the silver external hard drive from Marcus's office. "This contains everything," she said. "Every protocol, every phase, every other woman." The detective took the drive carefully, as if it were made of something fragile. "You're safe now," he said. "You're going to be fine." Elena didn't respond. She wasn't sure if he was right. 1 month later, Elena sat at a wooden table in a sunlit room. The room was simple and warm, part of a safe house that the police had arranged for her. Outside the window, birds were singing. On the table in front of her was a police report. It was thick, filled with evidence photographs, witness statements, forensic analysis. She had read most of it. But today, the detective had brought her the final documents, the things that had been locked in Marcus's safe. Elena opened to the last page. It was labeled Evidence, Item 402. Attached to the page was a photograph of a birth certificate. Elena recognized the seal, the official format, the embossed date. The name on the certificate was not Elena. The name was Sarah Thorne. The birth date was March 14th, 1988, the same date as Elena's. Below the photograph of the birth certificate was a DNA analysis report. Twin siblings, it stated. Fraternal twins, separated at birth. Sarah had been raised by Marcus's family. Elena had been raised by another family entirely. They had been twins, and neither had known the other existed. Marcus's experiment wasn't just about controlling women. It was about finding Sarah, his first wife, the one who had disappeared, the one who had become something other than what he wanted her to be. When she refused to play along with his protocols any longer, when she had finally broken free 3 years ago, he had started looking for someone exactly like her, someone identical, someone he could try again with. He had found Elena through a dating website. She had been alone, vulnerable, seeking connection. He had moved into her life like a shadow, and he had never let go. But Sarah had survived. Sarah had escaped, perhaps to a new name, a new life, a new identity that Marcus couldn't track. Elena opened her locket, a silver pendant that she had found among the police evidence, the only thing of her mother's that she had ever known. Inside was a photograph. 2 baby girls, identical, smiling at the camera. The back of the photograph read, Sarah and Elena, March 1988. Elena looked at the photograph for a long time. Then she closed the locket with a sharp, satisfied click. The bright blue sky outside the window seemed to shine a little brighter. Found you? Elena whispered.